The Women of Ill Repute, with your hosts, Wendy Mesley and Maureen Holloway.
Wendy, I wonder if there's any connection between comedy and geography.
I'm not sure, but there's definitely a connection between humor and nationality.
Are you gonna make a sweeping statement like the French aren't funny?
Yeah, we're going to go there. I'm sure they're very funny to each other. Can I say that?
Well, there's that sort of that humor within one culture. But I'm going to say, for argument's sake, the Irish are funnier than the Germans. And I'm going to say the Scottish are funnier than the English. I'm going to say that.
Brazilians, they might be funnier than Argentinians. I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh, there's Ron. Okay, Ron, you're supposed to be in the green room.
Okay,
you're not supposed to.
I'm just trying to interject. There's just so many balls being lobbed over the plate here.
This is what because I'm going to suggest that people from Eastern Canada, like you, are funnier than the ones from the West. And I know this is going to irritate people from the West, but there is a disproportionate number of comedians who came from Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and then up the St. Lawrence to Montreal and then Toronto. Mm-hmm. And I would even argue that the farther east you go, the funnier you are.
It certainly gets darker because the Newfoundlanders don't think ones from Nova Scotia are funny.
You see?
Yeah. So you're not even supposed to be here. So that's Ron James. We haven't even properly introduced you yet, and you're already there. So Ron is our guest. So meanwhile, Maureen is crapping on the West. Hi, Ron.
Yes, I am.
Hi.
I am. I'm not crapping on the West. I'm just saying that, that there. I'm trying to argue that there is a nationality to humor. And Ron is from Glace Bay, Nova Scotia.
Yes, I am. I was born on the Coal Town Road. I lived there till I was 9, left in grade 3, and moved to Halifax. So my early years were with Cape Bretoners, and my other years were with Newfoundlanders and Haligonians. See, my father's people were from Burgeo, and my mother's people were from the Coal Town Road. And
so we should pretend that we know where all of that is. So I have heard of Burgeo. Burgeo's in
the northernmost point of Nova Scotia. With a very Celtic tradition. But when I was a little kid, I'm 66 now, when I was a little kid, there were like 11 coal mines and a big steel mill in Sydney that employed 7,500. So it was the industrial heartland of Atlantic Canada. And then my father's people had come over to Halifax prior to World War II. So, I mean, I went to an Anglican church, well, Newfoundlanders and something like that. What was this? What's going on, boy? What's the service today, boy? It's talking about, oh, Jesus, some good day, boy.
Okay, I got the last part.
I sung them today, boy. That's some good. It's not my attitude, your attitude, boy. And my grandmother was this little Newfoundlander who got shorter as she got older, like my father did. By the time he was 83, he could run under the kitchen table without hitting his head. So it was fun, I'd throw some foil under there, he'd run for it. That's a joke, girls. Anyway, ladies. But your hypothesis today. Yes. Is humor and geography. Yeah. And I was about to say, Maureen, not exactly a limb you went out on there when you said Scottish people are funnier than Germans. Not a lot of.
No, I said the Irish are funnier than Germans.
Yeah, the Irish are ridiculously funny. And but there's funny everywhere. And but there's something about the culture I came from, a storytelling culture. It almost sounds cliche now, but like the Irish and like the Scottish, there was a great oral tradition of storytelling. And like my father could tell a great joke and remember it verbatim. I can't remember jokes, but comedians are observers. And so as a little kid sitting on the kitchen counter, I assimilated all this pantheon of personalities that would cross my parents' threshold, and friends and neighbors and family and all those kinds of colors that form the tapestry of your life.
And the French? No.
Yeah. The French. Well, the French, the Quebecois, man. Geez, that's a whole different kettle of fish there, isn't it? Well,
but I didn't mean the Quebecois. I meant the French.
If you can walk on stilts and tie a balloon dog, you're getting a government grant as a 12-year-old.
Oh, but the French, and I'm going to specifically say French Canadians, their humor is more visual. To your point,
Visual. It's
making
like amateur night of the Clothes War during a full moon. Have you ever been to the Just for Laughs? Have you ever been to
yes,
Just for Laughs French section?
yes,
We went down there with
yes.
Second City once, way back in '88, and we were the first English act coming in, so we overlapped with the French, and they packed club soda, and the act that was just killing, just destroying the room, was a guy playing a guitar, just crazy like, not playing it, but just whacking away at a guitar, and a guy in a sombrero running around the stage tramping on hard taco shells.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Right?
No,
Right?
it's
They
just
were just losing it. And we'd go
when
in
you
early every
reduce
night.
it to that.
Donnie Lake and John Hempel and I go in early every night to stand at the back of the room and go, well, what are we missing? What are we missing? We're missing the Quebecois DNA is what we're missing.
Yeah.
I said earlier, if you can walk on stilts and tie a balloon dog, you're working till the snow flies.
Yeah.
Montreal. It's like years ago, I used to have this joke in my show. I said, boy, they love their buskers in Montreal. I was driving through old Montreal on my way to Nova Scotia one summer. Every street corner was filled with buskers doing something. I watched a rummy take a shit in a hat before I realized it wasn't a show.
Oh, dear.
Is that too abrasive for your audience?
No, not at all. Not for our audience. Maybe for us.
Well, I was
Come
just reading
on, I've
about
read
how
your blogs.
you
don't
don't
take
like
any shit.
Yeah, well, I just finished reading all about you, and you said somewhere that you don't think that Canadians like mean humor, and yet here we are
That wasn't
making
mean.
jokes.
That wasn't mean.
Well,
That
we're
was
making
just
jokes about
observing.
other people. What's mean? What do Canadians like, and why are you distinctly Canadian, or are you?
I'm distinctly Canadian because when I got back from I'll answer that in two parts. And I didn't think that observation on the Quebecois comedy was even remotely mean.
No.
It's just true.
Look, they get the lion's share of government largesse, so they should be able to take a joke. Excuse me. When I came back from Los Angeles in '93, I went down to chase the sitcom dream there for 3 years in another incarnation. And I just wanted to make it work here. That's all. And you can talk to comedians who've done their time in Los Angeles, and you get a little hit, and then you live on that little hit for 3 to 6 months, and you hope you get another little hit. And what's lost in translation here between Canada and America, I mean, LA and New York are seen as this shining grail of opportunity, and it can be. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the Americans do comedy like nobody's business. It's really something else when it's done right and it's done well. It's remarkable. But I came back here, and we, at that point in time, I still married, wanted to have another child, and so we did. And I was influenced down there. I know he's been done to death these days, but by Joseph Campbell, to Follow Your Bliss. And so I did. I wrote a one-man show about my time in LA, up and down in Shaky Town, one man's journey through the California dream. And it changed my life. I started doing amateur night, and everything began to click here. You know, I eventually got paid for my work, and I was in the clubs for 5 years, and I loved it. And then when I went around the tip of Lake Superior booking my own tour in the dead of February, you know, playing Lonesome Sentinels on the frozen tip of Gitche Gumi, I turned a corner at one point, and it was almost like I passed through this metaphysical veneer into a Group of Seven painting. It was fantastic. And I thought, there's something working for me here. There's something that's called me. It was a calling, you know? And I couldn't feed my family or make a living and actualize those simple middle-class dreams as an actor, waiting for someone else to decide if I was good enough for the role or not. And now I'm pretty well guaranteed I'm not. The only direction any network wants to see a dude with white eyebrows walking is out the door. So I'm so fortunate. After 25 years, I started blazing trail into Soft Cedars after the club I worked at closed down, and began working with a great producer, Terry McRae. And at that point in time, it was like the early days of the Buffalo. I mean, it was verdant prime territory. it was amazing. And so we built this following up 1 gig at a time, 1 kilometer at a time, driving to these points beyond the pale. And I loved it. It was rewarding. And then they saw me at Just for Laughs. Bruce Hills asked me to write a one-man show in 2003 after my first series was canceled, Blackfly. And so I did. They saw it at the CBC. Slocko, he said, we'd like you to do a special. I did a special. I parachuted in for the next 14 years and had my 5 years there with my series. But, I mean, there's some, I don't have to tell either of you the Machiavellian minefields you have to negotiate at network television.
Oh,
no.
So that's what was so refreshing about the road. It's me, my car, my producer, and his car.
Well, that's why Maureen and I love doing this podcast, because we don't have any bosses, and we can sort of go anywhere and do anything, and it's great. But it's also nice to have somebody not carry your bags, but it's nice to have somebody else drive the car.
I mean, you got to tip your hat to the money you make in television. It's great, but nothing comes for free. I mean, I remember the grail for anybody, excuse me, in stand-up was to have your own TV show. And I did, with my name in the title. And then you wake up one morning and your hair's dyed mahogany. So just realize, Jesus, man, nothing comes for free. And of course you go through different culturally appointed mavens who run the place. And some of them don't even know you're on. And anyway, it was a constant battle for publicity and things. But what was great about the road, and what is still great about the road, is it's immediate and it's unencumbered by political baggage. And the relationship between you and the audience is symbiotic, and it's visceral too. And you have to take them along on this journey without losing the room. That being said, in light of your mention about Alberta, now that Danielle, that trumpet Smith, is running the show, you really do experience quite a difference between the rural and urban divide.
Now, this is just where had you given us a chance, and when we brought you on, we were going to plug your book. And now we won't. No, it's called All Over the Map.
I have to
Rambles,
learn to talk in sound bites.
All Over the Map, Rambles and Ruminations from the Canadian Road. And so this dovetails very nicely with what we're talking about, because do you have to change your material, or is it received differently, say, in Kamloops than it would be in Kitchener?
Yeah, like the Danielle Smith jokes, do they go over?
For the most part, in Calgary and Edmonton, they killed. Look, I was doing convoy material out there. I still do. I got a threat from Pembroke, from a Diagilon. Guy had a Diagilon logo on his Facebook page. Don't come back to Pembroke again if you know what's good for you.
Oh,
and but a comedian has to speak truth to power, and whether it's some potentate on his golden throne, like the mutant south of the border, or whether it's in political incompetence in our own country, or the holding our nation's capital hostage for 3 weeks with diesel fumes, truck horns, and crappy sing-alongs. That's a comedian's job. And in Canada, you have to be an equal opportunity offender. But what's happened these days is sensitivities around these issues have become far more pronounced and far more visceral. Now it's not a question of where you just vote. It's become a question of identity. And woke is bandied around an awful lot. And but I think I've still adhered to the adage that I always did, where you want to have the plumber and the professor sitting side by side laughing at similar things in the same joke. You know,
So is that still happening, Ron? Like you've written about how comedians, when they go on stage, they worry about, can I actually take the audience there? And that in the old days, you would have the plumber and the professor, and you would tell your joke, and they'd both laugh. Like, do you worry more now?
Yeah, I worry more now. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. You know, I mean, if you want to read, you know, take the question of the Middle East, for instance, right? Take the Middle East, the most controversial subject of all time, even before the recent war. And it's the third rail for stand ups, unless you're established to an extent that you can take the hit and keep moving. That's a luxury that I think they have in America that we don't have here because of a population difference. We've got 37 million people here. There's 375 million in America, and 395 million of them are weaponized. So, you know, I mean, I've had some buddies who do stand up and who tour the States, and, you know, they've been told that, listen, I wouldn't go out in the parking lot right away.
Wow.
Wouldn't leave right away. And, but, you know, I do a 100-minute to a 2-hour show, and there's a little bit for everybody. A little bit for everybody. You know, I'll talk about, you know, playing house league hockey growing up, or going to church, and, or my family, you know, the differences, in, you know, my Celtic heritage and things like that. You know, you'll talk about the movements of technology, how nanosecond fast it's changing. And if there's any theme to my show, it's of the average man standing in one place trying to make sense of this rapidly changing planet in the language of laughs.
And have you figured it all out?
No, I don't think you ever really figure it out.
Yeah.
But you try to connect the dots as best you can. But the bottom line is getting laughs. And I used to say, if you want a sermon, you should go somewhere else. But yet, my opinions on the alt-right, the weaponization of gospel by fundamental Christians, mental being the operative syllable, and its infiltration into what should be the secular separation between church and state. I mean, I care about that. So if you care about it, you're going to have to talk about it. You're going to have to try to find the funny in it, you know. And but like the great Jon Stewart says, no subject is off the radar as long as you don't lose the room. I think he's great, by the way. And Billy Connolly, I love Billy Connolly. I mean, he said he didn't have any time for political correctness. But
Well,
my
Norm
daughters
Macdonald,
keep me honest too. You know, yeah. My
such a
daughters
great
keep me honest.
comedian.
35 to 30.
He offended so many people, and
Who's
yet
that, Billy Connolly?
no,
Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald offended a lot of people, and he died recently. But before he died, he said, "Who cares if it's funny, it's funny."
It's funny.
But unless you're French.
But there's no absolute, right? This is, I mean, some people believe there's absolute beauty or absolute comedy. Like, that is just funny. And it isn't. It's 100% what you think is funny. I mean, there are things that I think are funny that send me into conniptions, and other people are like, I don't get it. And that's just my gift, right? But there's always someone who's going to be offended. In fact, the Norm Macdonalds of the world would argue that if you're not offending somebody, you're not truly going there.
But that's one style of comedy, too. You know, that's his style of comedy, with all due respect to Norm, who I admire greatly. And everybody comes to the table with their own take on this world, and they're a product of their upbringing, right? They're a product of the or education system, or how they lived. And I'm an easy laugh. I mean,
You're an easy laugh.
Yes,
yourself,
I love laughing.
yeah.
Love it.
Me
You know,
too.
and I come from a family of laughers. I mean, if it was funny, we laughed. And I watched everything growing up, you know, the Smothers Brothers, Richard Pryor. I mean, some of the Jonathan Winters. I mean, I can still watch clips of him. I watch clips of Rickles, all these great guys, and the new guys too. I mean, but I mean, I think it's a comedian's job to punch up, not punch down. And that's always been the satirist's goal, is to, to topple, as I said before, the potentate and his golden throne and his entourage of sycophantic courtiers.
Yeah.
That's where you want to be getting your mileage. And
What do you,
yes.
sorry, what do you think of I'm just making a note of this, but I might as well say it to your face. So what do you think about comedians like Dave Chappelle and I guess Ricky Gervais, who, I mean, I was such a huge fan of Dave Chappelle's until his attitudes got in the way of me appreciating him. I still think he's got better pacing and a better.
I think they got so rich that they don't give a shit.
Really?
Yeah. I think they lost their empathy. And empathy is important, especially today. Come on, man. You got better subjects to pick on than trans kids.
I just watched Ricky Gervais, and
he's
I've always been a huge fan.
Yeah,
but he's saying, the more I talk about trans people, the more people show up, and the more money I make. So maybe that's.
Oh, that's not. He even said that. Oh, that's awful.
Did he say that?
Yeah. Well, more or less, yeah. Yeah, he made a joke about it. Ha 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 ha. But
we'll go pet a German Shepherd, will you? Look, I mean, he only talks about.
They're not that funny.
I mean, that's
the Irish Shepherds are much funnier.
And look, I mean, I don't think he's losing any sleep over everything, and they lost their empathy, I think, and it gets back to toppling the potentate and not punching down. I mean, what do they have to gain from that? What do they, I always think that it's the role of the comedian to move the world to the right side of history, not pander to an angry status quo. And that's tough sometimes, you don't, especially on some of those corporate gigs where anything can tip the apple cart, which is why I probably don't get them as much as I used to. But that's my feeling about those guys.
Do you think that's why you're not getting as many corporate gigs?
Because tipping the apple cart about more? Yeah, probably. Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe. Look, I found that there are certain aspects to the corporate world, and look, I paid my mortgage on corporate gigs a long time ago, and it's always a Faustian bargain, right? It's like, okay, no politics, no sex. No politics, no sex. They said to me once, no politics, no sex, and don't make fun of Harper. And I said, well, what did you hire me for? And it's not like my act is overt with that, but there's a tone that exists. I'll give you an example. During COVID, I had a gig for Home Depot, okay, March 21. And we were shooting at a soundstage in Mimico. And just before I went on, they said, don't say anything about Trump or Georgia.
Too late.
And I'd okayed everything with the client. I said, look, I'm doing these jokes. Is that okay? Oh, yeah, it's fine. You sure it's okay? Yeah, it's fine. Typed it all. All right, great. And at that point in time, it was... and they were all tuned in from Georgia, the head offices all over Canada and everything. Okay. And it's a comedian's job to rock the apple cart, not ride in it. I mean, I don't know who do they want? Rich Little doing Jimmy Stewart impressions? Anyway, so my opening joke, it was taking us a long time to get the vaccines at the time. And I said, well, that vaccine rollout is something else, isn't it? Boy, oh boy, talk about dropping the ball, Doug Ford. He had a better grasp of supply and demand when he was selling hash from the back of his father's Cadillac. And the phones start ringing. I didn't know. I just see the cameramen shaking and laughing. So I'm playing to the room, and they're behind plexiglass and everything, and I'm just up there. And I said, but at least Canada's got it together, man. Look at the Maritimes. They shut the borders down faster than a Wuhan rub and tug. Boom! Off it goes. The phone calls come into the agency.
That was the end of your corporate career.
It was bedlam. But
wow.
It's like Stewart said the other day when he was being interviewed. Some girl asked him, he was talking to a university, I think, and how far can you go in comedy? And he got indignant, and I like that. He said, well, why are comedians always asked this? Why are they always asked this particular question? Why don't they ask a president or a member of the Pentagon, why did you drop such a big bomb? Now, that's extreme in America, but it's the same here. I mean, we pussyfoot around our politicians. And it seems like, look, a comedian drops an F bomb at a corporate gig or ruffles some executive feathers, and he's vilified, right?
The politicians are vilified in another way, but not like that.
Another way, but
I don't
power
think we
protects
pussyfoot
them,
around
Wendy. The Prime Minister's office protects them. They are vilified, and they lose votes as a result. And I don't want to dig a hole now in terms of where we're going politically because of one mistake or another, or because of ineptitude, rather. But people always seem to be on the lookout for comedians. What we're going to say, it's just words, it's words.
I got to ask you something completely different. One of the last times you and I had a chat was your marriage had just ended, and your life was changing, and
that sucked.
And now you're dating? Like, are you like on Tinder or something?
No, I'm not on Tinder. No. Yeah, when did I run into you? In the beaches?
Yeah, so we used to live in the sort of same neighborhood.
Yeah, we did. Raised my daughters there, and beaches was a great place to raise a family. Do you still raise yours there?
No, I don't live there. I haven't lived there for a few years. So, So
I'm in my condo now. As I used to say in my show, I'm the oldest person in the building, and I haven't seen a dog bigger than 6 inches. But
condo dogs.
But I get it looks like a cabin now. But that was me.
Well, you got the fish on the wall behind you.
I got my little place in Nova Scotia, and my place in Nova Scotia is a dandy little spot down by the water, and I like to get down there as much as I can. And I think in terms of the way Toronto's going, I mean, the whole block here is going to go pretty soon with 2 40-story towers, and I can still see St. James Cathedral from my deck, and the building here won't go up any higher. But I haven't slept without earplugs in 15 years since I've been here.
Yeah, that's an occupational hazard, and you live downtown.
Yeah, it is. Why do you live downtown too, Maureen?
No, I'm in the park. I'm not in. I live near
nice
High
library
Park.
in your tent.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know. It's just there for show. Haven't read any of them. No, that's not true. So dating's going well.
Yeah.
You've got daughters, don't you?
35 and 30. Gracie's going to be 30 the April 14th, and Kaylee is 35.
And Kaylee, that's the name of a party, I think, right?
Yeah, kitchen party. Yeah,
Kaylee. Yeah, it's old joke of mine. Like to name our children the man. Kaylee means kitchen party in Gaelic. We like to name our children in the manner in which they were conceived. My brother's boy's name is Ulach, means under the back porch with a rum and coke. So, anyway, whatever.
Daisy.
I set up, Wendy. Thank you. Yeah, they're great gals. They live in Toronto, and but changes and such. We had to put my mom enter my mom into a retirement villa. She's 92 in July.
Wow.
And she took a spill. She took a spill in her kitchen last summer, and was absolutely defiantly opposed to leaving. And but from 90 to 91, that was a huge seismic shift in her abilities and such, And another thing too. I mean, you probably find it. I'm sure getting tired going to celebrations of life for friends that are leaving too early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting getting older. It certainly puts you. I mean, mortality is no longer another man's worry. I have several friends with early onset Alzheimer's, and I buried 4 in the last 18 months. And so it makes you aware. And it's crazy. And during COVID, with all those deaths in elder care facilities, they should have been called I don't care facilities, where they hired undervalued workers to care for undervalued lives. And I thought, geez, they better get their shit together because in 20 years, the bulk of the baby boom is going to be roaming the home in our Led Zeppelin onesies just to sing along the way from Taking a Stairway to Heaven. So, but do you find that too? I mean, as your children have grown older and you've grown older, that you're
Well, we
more
still
aware
have
of making it matter?
well, we still have younger 25-year-olds,
Okay.
Wendy and I
Yeah,
have
I started
a
late.
31-year-old. Yeah.
There's a joy to starting late, except if she waits as long as I did, I'll be dead.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's the thing. There's not the thing about and Wendy and I, neither of us have our parents anymore, and so there's nothing between you and the end. So, you're very much aware of that. I don't know very many people who do have their parents left, and if they did, they'd be very old. But you just remind me of when you referred to celebration of life. When my dad turned 80 quite a while ago, because he's gone now, I had a party for him,
Oh, cool.
and I invited all his friends, and I called it a celebration of life, because at that point we hadn't lost anybody, and we didn't know that was the terminology. So I invited all these people to come here for a celebration of life.
And then he appeared.
My dad's buddy Jim comes in, and my father's there, and he goes, "Neil, what the hell are you doing? What a pleasant surprise."
That's funny. I'm not dead yet. Come on in anyway. Liquor's free.
It's a reminder is to maybe have a celebration of life when the person whose life you're celebrating could be there too.
Yeah. So
We got to let you go. It's we wouldn't mind one more. Can you be funny? That's what I always always say to comedians.
Tell us a joke.
Yeah.
Be funny.
Yeah,
It's been lovely to have you.
Yeah, you too. It's lovely to talk to both of you. I'm a big fan of your blog. You're so bright, and you just don't take any shit. You got rebel voices, man.
That's
a
right.
rebel voice is an anomaly in a country with such a deference for authority. Right?
Well, thank you very much.
It's
You
true.
are now a woman of ill repute, along with
It's true, though. I mean, you got to tip the apple cart. You got to hold power to account, and you have to. And I don't think you sugarcoat things. And it's interesting, to bring it back to comedy again. That politicians are allowed to be as vitriolic and as puerile as they wish on the floor of the House of Commons or in some media scrum, but a comedian for some reason is always expected to toe the line, right? It's like you're still getting your knuckles rapped by the ruler in grade 7 for imitating the teacher. Although my teachers like me because I made them laugh too, but I find that any kind of voice is welcome in front of that microphone, as long as you're playing to the top of your intelligence, and from my standard anyway, moving the world in the right direction, and not losing your empathy for those who need it.
Well, I'm glad you're not towing the line, and you do want to sell your book. So do you want to hold up your book? There aren't that many people who. But here we go, and it's called
All
Over the Map. There you go, Ron James.
And it was a bestseller for 2 weeks.
Rambles and ruminations from the Canadian Road.
Yes.
One last question, just to sort of wrap this up. What's funnier, north or south?
You mean theme from The Godfather? My ring. What, north or south?
North or south? Canadians versus Americans.
Oh, geez, north, man.
Yeah, but they're all in LA.
I thought you were talking about the words.
No.
You can have LA. I did it for 3 years. It's a marvelously intoxicating place when spring comes overnight, and look what's happened here. It's until you've put your time in there, and until you've had an endless run in paradise, you don't. An endless run of unemployment in paradise. You really don't know what price you have to pay in order to get where you want to go. And there's no such thing as middle ground there. You're either winning or you're not. And I think that's America's motto, right? And I had an epiphany 7 years into my touring in Canada where I still miss Los Angeles. I'd been driving to Edmonton in one of those primal western blizzards a Yeti wouldn't wander, where a 3-lane highway became a snow-crusted goat path, a Taliban refugee with a winning lottery ticket wouldn't cross, and some mountain pass. And I got into the Windspear Center on that blizzard night. I had to walk through snowdrifts to get in the stage door. And we had 1,200 people in there.
Wow.
And I remember leaving that show thinking, you know what? 1,200 people laughing in a minus 30 blizzard in Edmonton sounds exactly the same as 1,200 people laughing in Las Vegas when it's warm. And just for the pure joy of hearing laughs, which is what makes me the happiest, really, is such a great reward. And I don't mean to seem maudlin about it, but that's the rule that you have to be comfortable with when you're making a living in Canada, because I don't think the networks really respect stand-up. They'll pay lip service to it, and although my specials got great numbers, I was drawing 1.4 million people on New Year's Eve and still got canceled. So, and people still ask about them. And, networks make their choices. They move on. They change. I get it. And nothing lasts forever. But just stepping out from the curtain to a room packed with people sitting shoulder to shoulder, processing the daily trauma of the life journey in the language of laughs is a great reward. Man, after 25 years and on the road and 30 in stand-up and 44 looking for a laugh, boy, it's worked out.
You're still finding them. You're still finding them.
It's fun.
Ron, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, lovely
Hope to see you at a show sometime.
Okay.
I'll give you a shout. All the best.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. You too. Great. Bye. He's
loquacious.
No, he loves the language, but he also loves the laughter, and I think that's really important. Like looking for laughs. He's spent his whole career looking for laughs, which is great.
I'm still at it.
Yeah, I know you hate it when I do but you're in your 60s. Why are you still out there? Why are you still performing?
Coming from someone of the same vernacular, it's pretty funny.
No, I'm 12. But it is interesting about how he's like he mentioned Jon Stewart, who is also he's not a child anymore, but people are still fighting, and he's still fighting, which I think is great. I don't his politics, I would say, are fairly pronounced, but who cares? That he doesn't think he has any is interesting.
I think also that there's a fearlessness that does come with age and experience where, I think younger comedians and actors and broadcasters coming up are worried about being canceled because that's been the climate for so long. And when you get to this point, I certainly feel that way. I don't want to offend anybody if they don't deserve to be offended, but I care less about losing my job over it or, that's basically, who's going to fire me? You?
Yeah, we don't have a job.
Well, there's that.
Women of Ill Repute was written and produced by Maureen Holloway and Wendy Mesley, with the help from the team at the Sound Off Media Company, and producer Yet Belgraver.